Hello everyone and a very warm welcome to another lesson. In this lesson, we're going to learn about IELTS Writing Task 1. Our lesson is going to be based on how to write a letter asking for a reference. This writing task 1 is meant for the general training students. So this letter is not meant for IELTS academic. If you're an IELTS academic student, then I recommend that you check in the links because you will find a link to all my writing task 1s for the academic students. Before we get into the question, I would like to give you some really important information about IELTS Writing Task 1 for the GT students. Now remember to always spend about 20 minutes writing your Task 1. That means that you have 40 minutes to write your Task 2. Spend 3 to 5 minutes planning and then the rest of the time writing. And always leave 2 minutes to check your letter for spelling or grammar mistakes. Remember, you will need a full 40 minutes for task 2. So don't go over 20 minutes for task 1. You are expected to write more than 150 words for your letter. Now, I would recommend that you aim for between 160 and 180 to be safe. If you write a letter that is below 150 words, then you will lose marks. Remember that your letter is worth about 33% of your final writing score. In your letter, you do not need to write an address. Always pay close attention to who you're writing to and the relationship you have with that person, because this is going to decide your style of writing and your tone. Also, pay attention to the aim and purpose of the letter. It is essential that you use the 3 points that IELTS gives you to structure your letter and provide the foundation for the information. Now, all points must be included clearly in your letter, and if you fail to include all the points in your letter, your band score will be lower. You are expected to use your imagination to fill in details about the letter and decide the names of the people in your letter, for example. Always begin your letter by addressing the person and then an opening line, and always sign off appropriately. So those are the general remarks that I would like to give you about IELTS Writing Task 1 GT. Now, let's get into our question. Once you receive your Writing Task 1 exam, the first thing that you need to do is read the question and make sure that you understand the question. Let's read this question together and identify what IELTS wants us to include in the letter. You're applying for a job. So I would underline the word job. And you need a letter of reference. I would underline letter of reference. Write a letter to a former teacher. That is very important. Underline that, former teacher. In your letter, A, give details of the job. So you need to explain what the job is about. B, explain why it is important to you. That is, explain why the job is important to you. C, suggest what information your teacher could put in the reference. So what details, what do you want the teacher to put in the reference letter? Now, once you have identified all the key points and understood them, The next thing that you need to do is very quickly start writing your letter. Now, you are applying for a job and you need a reference letter. And you're asking your former teacher to write the reference letter for you. That means that you know the name of the teacher. And because you know the name of the teacher, then you're going to write the name of the teacher in the salutation. So the first step of writing the letter is what we call the salutation. The salutation is the greetings. Dear Mrs. Robinson. Now, you know the name of the teacher because it is your former teacher. So write the name of the teacher. Dear Mrs. Robinson. Don't forget the capital M and the capital R, and don't forget the comma after Robinson. Now, once you have done that, then you move on to step 2, and in step 2, we write the introduction. These are the opening remarks of the letter. And in the introduction, you tell the person why you're writing the letter. Remember, this is a formal letter. So you need to inform the person who is reading the letter why you're writing the letter. So step 2, I am writing this letter to kindly request you to write a reference letter for me, which I need for a job application. I'm writing this letter to kindly request you. To do what? To write a reference letter for me. Why? Which I need for a job application. It really is that straightforward. I am writing this letter to request you, kindly, politely request you to write a reference letter for me. Why do I need the letter? I need it for a job application. So in that introduction, I have informed Mrs. Robinson why I'm writing this letter to her, and I have made sure that she understands why I need it. I need a reference letter for a job application. After that, you move on to step 3. Remember, step 1 was the salutation. That is the greetings. Step 2 is the introduction, where you tell the person why you're writing the letter. And now we move on to step 3. In step 3, we are going to include details about the very first point that IELTS has given us. That is point A. Remember earlier on I told you that if you don't include details about each of the points that IELTS has given you, your band score will be lower, and you don't want that. So in step 3, you're going to write about the first requirement, which is A, give details of the job. Give details of the job. So in that paragraph, IELTS expects you to explain more about the job. Remember, Mrs. Robinson has no idea what job you're applying for. So you want to give Mrs. Robinson more information about the job that you're going to apply for. Now, the job that I will be applying for is working as a teaching assistant in a local primary school close by my house. This job will require me to provide support to the lead teacher in charge of the classroom by working with individual pupils or small groups. My duties will include creating lesson plans, documenting progress, and supervising pupils as they complete their learning tasks. So in that paragraph, I gave Mrs. Robinson details about the job. I informed Mrs. Robinson that I will be applying for a job as a teaching assistant in a local primary school close by my house. So I am going to be applying for a job as a teaching assistant in a school that is primary school, okay, that is very near my house. Close by means nearby. And then after that, I explain what the job requires. What will be my duties and responsibilities in this job? This job will require me to provide support to the lead teacher in charge of the classroom. So I will be supporting the lead teacher, that is the teacher who is assigned to that particular class. I will be giving her support. By doing what? By working with individual students or small groups. As a teaching assistant, you support the lead teacher by working with individual pupils. Remember, in primary school, we call them pupils. The learners in a primary school are called pupils. The learners in a secondary school are called students. And in universities and colleges, we call them students. But in primary school, we call them pupils. Okay, so that's the difference between pupils and students. Pupils are learners in a primary school. Students are learners in colleges, universities, and secondary school. My duties so I explain more about my duties and responsibilities. They will include creating lesson plans, okay, documenting progress, that is making sure that I am writing about the progress that individual students are making, and supervising pupils. I have to supervise them as they complete their learning tasks. So in step 3, I have written details about the first point that IELTS gave me, and that is point A, give details of the job. Now, in the next paragraph, that is step 4, I am going to write about the second key point that IELTS has instructed me to include in my letter, and that is B, explain why it is important to you. Explain why the job is important to you. Now, this job is extremely important to me because I'm very passionate about working with young children and helping them overcome their individual learning difficulties in different subjects. In addition to that, I'm hoping that this job will give me the working experience that I need to qualify for entry to a teacher training college in the future. So in that paragraph, that is step 4, I have explained why this job is so important to me. I have used connectors to help me talk about the different points as to why this job is important. This job is extremely important to me. The first linking word that I use is because. I'm very passionate about working with young children and helping them, and another linking word, and helping them overcome their individual learning difficulties in different subjects. Another reason I introduce it using the linking words in addition to that. I'm hoping that this job will give me the working experience that I need to qualify for entry to a teacher training college in the future. So in the future, I would like to become a teacher. And I'm hoping that by working as a teaching assistant, I will get the working experience that I need to qualify for entry when I later apply to a teacher training college. So in step 4, I have explained why this job is important to me. Then we move on to the next point that IELTS wants us to include in the letter, and that is point C. Suggest what information your teacher could put in the reference. In that point, IELTS wants you to tell the teacher what details he or she should include in the letter. When you ask somebody for a reference letter, it is important that you inform them. What details would you like them to include in the letter? So in step 5, we are going to address point C. We are going to explain to Mrs. Robinson what information, we are going to inform her what information she should include in the reference letter. I would be so grateful if you could include information about my ability to multitask, how resourceful and team-oriented I am, but also details about my interpersonal and leadership skills in the reference letter. So, in that paragraph, I informed Mrs. Robinson what she should include in the letter. She should include information about my ability to multitask. To multitask is to do different things at the same time. And as a teaching assistant, you need that. You need to be able to multitask. That is, do more than one thing at the same time. I also would like her to include information about how resourceful I am. To be resourceful is to be the sort of person that, you tend to think about different ways and strategies of how to approach or how to solve something. Team-oriented. Are you a team player? That is also important as a teaching assistant. But also details about my interpersonal skills. How well can I interact, for example, with different people, okay? Interpersonal skills. How well can I relate to the lead teacher, for example, the students, the parents, the other teachers? Interpersonal skills and also leadership skills. As a teaching assistant, you need leadership skills because you're working with small groups of pupils and you're also working with individual pupils. So you need some leadership skills. Now, so far I have included point A, point B, and point C in my letter, and I have organized them in different paragraphs. In between the paragraphs, I have left some space. So you should leave one line space between the paragraphs. And now we move on to stage 6 or step 6. In step 6, we are going to write the conclusion. Remember, step 2 was the introduction. Now, step 6 is the conclusion of the letter. It is where you conclude the letter. I look forward to receiving the letter soon so that I can submit my application. Thank you in advance. So in the conclusion, you simply inform the person that you are looking forward to receiving the letter, that is the reference letter, very soon, okay? So that I can submit my application because I need the letter of reference to submit my application. And then you thank the person in advance. Thank you in advance. And that is step 6 done. Then you move on to step 7 where you sign off the letter. Step 1 was the greetings, the salutation. Step 7 is where we sign off the letter. And because we know the name of the person, remember this is a formal letter, but you know the name of the person to whom you're writing the letter. The name is Mrs. Robinson. So you should end your letter with yours sincerely. When you don't know the person, that is when you begin your letter, a formal letter with Dear Sir or Dear Madam, then you should always end it with yours faithfully. But in this case, because we know the name of the person who is going to receive the letter, and that is Mrs. Robinson, we sign off the letter by using yours sincerely. And then don't forget the comma after sincerely. Okay, yours sincerely. And then after that, you move on to step 8, where you write your full name, Rita Parker. Okay, so what have we learned in this lesson? We have learned that the first thing that you need to do when you receive your task 1 is to read the question, understand the question, and identify the 3 points that you need to include in your letter. After that, you begin writing your letter. Step 1 is the greetings. Dear Mrs. Robinson, because we know this is a former teacher. Step 2 is the greetings. Okay, it is the, step 1 is greeting. Step 2 is the introduction. In the introduction, you inform the receiver of the letter why you're writing the letter. Then after that, you move on to step 3, where you write about the first key point, that is point A. Then after that, you move on to step 4, where you write about the second key point, and that is point B. And then after that, you move on to step 5, where you write about point C. After that, you move on to step 6, where you conclude the letter. After that, you move on to step 7, where you sign off the letter. And then after that, step 8, where you write your full name. And you're done. After that, as I pointed out earlier on, cross-check your letter for any spelling mistakes or grammar. And you should score a high band after that. Now, one of the most important things, besides including all the information that IELTS wants you to include in the letter, is to make sure that your grammar is correct. Take note of the tense I am using to write this letter. Take note of the verbs. The first paragraph, I am writing this letter. Now that one is standard. I'm writing this letter. And then after that you explain. Now, you notice then that in the second paragraph, I am using the future tense. I will be applying. This job will require. My duties will include, because it is something that I'm planning to do in the future. So I am using the future tense. I will be applying. This job will require. My duties will include. Okay? And then in step 4, take note of the tense I have used there. This job is extremely important. That is the present tense. And then in addition to that, I am hoping that. Okay? That is, I'm talking about the future. I am hoping that. And then in step 5, take note, I would be so grateful. Okay? So take note of the tense I have used in this letter. It is extremely important. Now, this brings me to the end of this lesson. If you found this lesson helpful at all, please give this video a thumbs up. Share the video with somebody else so that they can also benefit from it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn your notification bell on, because I will be uploading more Task 1 letters for the general training students in the near future. Now, thank you very much, everyone, and I shall see you in our next lesson. Bye-bye, and take good care of yourself.